for that. For those of you who are new, USIP was founded in 1984 by Congress as an independent national institute dedicated to the proposition that peace is possible, it's practical, and it's essential for U.S. and global security. USIP has been working in Pakistan for many years. We have a focus on trying to increase tolerance for diversity in Pakistan, working with a broad range of civil society actors, innovators, scholars, policymakers. But what we do back here in Washington we feel is also important in trying to keep the American public informed and policymakers informed about what's happening in Pakistan, as well as in all the other countries in which USIP is working overseas. It's a pleasure today to invite Ambassador Asad Majid Khan to USIP. He is no stranger to Washington. He's served here before. This event is proving to be very timely, and again, much more so than we envisioned when we originally scheduled it. This past week has witnessed what some are describing as the most serious military confrontation between two nuclear states in recent history. So we are pleased to have the ambassador here with us today to discuss this crisis, but not just this crisis, many of the other issues that are priorities for Pakistan and also for the U.S.-Pakistan relationship. As we're a peace institute, we like to hear perspectives from all parties. We're also therefore reached out to the Indian embassy in the hopes that we'll have an opportunity for the Indian ambassador to speak at USIP at some point in the not too distant future. Ambassador Khan has a long and distinguished career in the Foreign Service of Pakistan, spanning nearly 3 decades. His most recent assignment was as Pakistan's ambassador to Japan, where he served from 2017 to 2019. Again, no stranger to DC, as he was here as the DCM at the embassy from 2012 to 2015. Ambassador Khan earned his doctorate in international economic and business law from Kyushu University in Japan. In a minute, I'll invite the ambassador to come here and take the stage and make introductory remarks. After that, my colleague Moeed Yusuf, who's the Associate Vice President here at USIP, will join the ambassador on the stage for moderated discussion and question and answer. But I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't use this opportunity to put in a plug for Moeed's book, Brokering Peace in Nuclear Environments, U.S. Crisis Management in South Asia. Published by Stanford about a year ago, and this certainly very relevant to the happenings of the last couple of weeks in South Asia. So I encourage all of you to rush out and buy this online immediately if you really want to understand what's been happening and how to respond to crises like these in South Asia. So with that, I'll invite you, Ambassador, up to the stage, and thank you again for coming to USIP.
Thank you, Andrew. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for having me over at the United States Institute of Peace to speak about Pakistan's policy responses to recent developments in our region and my priorities as Pakistan's ambassador to the United States for building a strong and sustainable partnership between our two countries. Over the years, the Institute has established itself as the first port of call for all newly arriving ambassadors from Pakistan. We are thankful to the Institute's leadership for their close and continued engagement with Pakistan. We value it greatly. I'm sure all of you have been closely following the recent developments in our region. However, before sharing my thoughts and perspectives on the recent developments, I'd like to start by talking about my priorities for the bilateral relationship and how it could be transformed into a long-term partnership based on mutuality of benefit. Distinguished guests, Pakistan-US relationship, as most of you are well aware, is as old as Pakistan itself. Over the last 7 decades, we have pursued common goals inspired by shared ideas and common objectives. We have achieved remarkable successes whenever we have worked together. I have a long personal association with this relationship. In my diplomatic career, spanning over 30 years, I have seen good times and challenging times. However, despite occasional differences and turbulence, the importance of the relationship and the need to stay engaged has never been lost on either side. For Pakistan, our relationship with the United States remains a consequential and significant one. We are the 5th largest country in the world in terms of population, a vibrant democracy, a nuclear power with a strategic location at the cusp of South, West, and Central Asia and proximity to the Persian Gulf. We also have an active and well-placed Pakistani-American community that enriches all facets of American society. The United States is also Pakistan's leading trading partner and a significant source of foreign direct investment and remittances. Unsurprisingly, given Pakistan's status as a major English-speaking nation, American colleges and universities remain a destination of choice for young Pakistanis looking to fulfill their dreams. All this makes Pakistan a significant player in its own right and a natural partner of the United States for building a strong, sustainable, and long-term relationship encompassing security, economy, business, and people-to-people contacts. We therefore do not see our relationship with the United States through the prism of another country and would not want to be seen through the prism of another country. In this backdrop, I arrive in Washington determined to work towards building a relationship that is broad-based and comprehensive, as well as long-term and predictable. Such a relationship, we are convinced, will not only serve the interests of our two countries, but would also act as a linchpin for the future stability and prosperity of the region. Distinguished guests, my arrival in Washington, I must say, is also auspiciously timed, as I come here after Pakistan has gone through a historic democratic transition with a new government in place under the dynamic leadership of Prime Minister Imran Khan. A leadership that is committed to usher Pakistan into a new era. The government wants to build a Naya Pakistan, that can be translated as New Pakistan, in order to pursue a people-friendly, development-driven, and peace-centric agenda. The whole thrust of the new government is to create an enabling environment that would allow the people of Pakistan to pursue their dreams and aspirations for personal growth, social mobility, and economic development and prosperity. To this end, the government has already put in place a comprehensive plan designed to provide better access to health, housing, and education to the people of Pakistan. Similarly, important steps are promoting austerity, fiscal discipline, and domestic resource mobilization, improving ease of doing business, enhancing competitiveness and productivity are being taken to deal with our foreign exchange and trade-related challenges. We believe that with our much improved security environment, better control over our energy crisis, and development of a massive connectivity and transport infrastructure, Pakistan is open for business. US businesses and investors have historically had a significant presence in Pakistan. Despite all the challenges that we confronted over the last decade in terms of security, they have not only maintained their equities in Pakistan, but enlarged them. Only recently, ExxonMobil has come back to Pakistan in a big way, and Cargill has entered Pakistani market as well. We want to see more US companies coming to Pakistan. With its huge middle class and potential to emerge as a manufacturing hub for the entire region, Pakistan offers a captive market for US retailers and rich investment opportunities for the US manufacturers. I'm here to seek and explore those opportunities, recognizing fully that now is the time to come to Pakistan. Sooner the better. As the Prime Minister recently told business investors in the Middle East, Pakistan is on the upswing. You do not want to miss the boat. Ladies and gentlemen, a prosperous, pluralistic and tolerant Pakistan as it is at the heart of the present government's vision for Pakistan. And it is this people and development centricity that is driving the government's peaceful neighborhood agenda. The Prime Minister is convinced that Pakistan will not be able to pursue its development goals and aspirations until and unless we have a peaceful neighborhood. The new government therefore wasted no time in reaching out to all of our neighbors, particularly India and Afghanistan, to seek dialogue, cooperation and engagement. Indeed, the Prime Minister held out a hand of friendship to India in his very first speech after the July 2018 elections, declaring that if India were to take one step, Pakistan will take two. Since then, Pakistan has opened the Kartarpur corridor for Sikh pilgrims from India. Pakistan has also made other peace overtures, which unfortunately remain unreciprocated. This past decade, the Pakistan-US relationship has come to be seen through the Afghan prism. Notwithstanding the fact that we have been partners before, and we hope to also agrees that an intra-Afghan dialogue that brings together the Taliban and the National Unity Government is essential for evolving a roadmap for sustainable peace in Afghanistan. It is ultimately up to the Afghan people and their representatives to determine their political future. Pakistan does not, however, want to be left holding the bag in the region. We hope the international community and particularly the US will remain economically engaged in Afghanistan. Pakistan has also been host to the Afghan refugees for almost 40 years. We hope that the peace settlement would result in the repatriation of Afghan refugees. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, the past few weeks have witnessed a serious escalation between India and Pakistan in the aftermath of the Pulwama attack, when a young Kashmiri carried out a suicide attack against an Indian military convoy in occupied Kashmir on 14th February. India pointed the finger at Pakistan within minutes. The Indian government and media went into overdrive, whipping up war hysteria against Pakistan. India paid no attention to the available evidence, all of which pointed to the indigenous origin of the attack. While rejecting the Indian allegations, Prime Minister Imran Khan offered India an investigation and dialogue and promised to take action. as well as by elements within India. The day after India's aggression against Pakistan, on 27th February, Pakistan struck 6 sites inside occupied Kashmir, purposefully avoiding civilian casualties or collateral damage. However, when 2 Indian aircraft violated our space, they were shot down. Our sole objective was to demonstrate that we had the right, will, and capability to act in our self-defense. We also made it clear that we do not wish to further escalate and are ready to give dialogue a chance to resolve issues like a responsible and mature democratic nation. Pakistan also called upon the international community to take once again stressed the importance of dialogue and engagement, pointing out that all wars start from miscalculation, and once they start, they are not in anyone's control. To reinforce Pakistan's commitment to peace and dialogue, and as a goodwill gesture aimed at de-escalating the rising tensions with India, Pakistan announced the release of the captured Indian pilot, who has already safely returned to India. The Indian pilot was handed over by Pakistani officials at the Wagah border. Merely hours later, Pakistani officials were back at the Wagah border, this time to receive the dead body of a Pakistani who had been beaten to death in an Indian prison. This symbolism could scarcely be starker. Ladies and gentlemen, Prime Minister Imran Khan has been consistent from day one in seeking peace and dialogue with India. He has shown courage, vision, and restraint as befits a statesman leading a nuclear power. We do hope that the worst is behind us and that some sense and sanity would prevail in India, allowing the present government to see the escalation with Pakistan beyond their narrow political domestic considerations. The attack has resulted in poor Kashmiris being attacked and hounded across India, even as Kashmiri leaders are being rounded up and imprisoned by Indian forces. This is happening on top of the unspeakable atrocities that the Kashmiri people have suffered, particularly since 2016, that are now duly documented in the UNOCHR and APGG reports. The international community cannot afford to continue getting it wrong. It must recognize that the real cause of regional instability in South Asia is the unresolved dispute of Kashmir. It is time to address the oldest dispute on the UN Security Council's agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, before I conclude, let me reiterate the importance Pakistan attaches to its relationship with the United States and our desire to build a long-term and broad-based partnership between the two countries. I thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you, Ambassador. As always, very have a bit of a chat and then open it up for questions from all of you. And could I request my colleagues to see if we could get questions from the overflow room as well? We have a large crowd in a couple of other rooms. As Andrew mentioned, this was an oversold event, and so I want to make sure they can be part of this. Ambassador, let me first begin by the only softball I'm going to give you today.
On paper, I presented my credentials on 11th January, but I had to go back to Japan to basically do my farewell calls in Tokyo. So, and I arrived here in early February, and then I was in Germany when the Pulwama thing happened. So, and we've been at it. So I still have to go out to see DC to be able to realize what it is like.
Still jet lagged.
Yes.
Well, let me begin quite honestly by asking you, you've had some of your official calls, I know. Is this a really different DC than what you left in 2015? Definitely a new administration, but the relationship also.
I think, yes, DC, at least this is what I hear from everybody, and I would say that I have still, or I have yet to find it out for myself, because I have only done a few calls so far, that DC is different from what it was before. But so far, I was certainly very warmly received by the President for my credentials, and I've also been very warmly received by senior State Department officials. So the challenges in the relationship, it never was an easy relationship, and there never was, or there never is a dull moment in this relationship. From that perspective and point of view, I frankly still don't see much of a difference, but as they say, jury is still out, so I
Sure.
I may be in a position to.
So let me sort of stay on the US-Pakistan for a bit and ask you, you've mentioned in your opening remarks the importance of Pakistan and the US-Pakistan relationships history. But quite honestly, the way the world is moving, there is an obvious new geostrategic outlook. And the US and China seem to be now the obvious competitors going forward in terms of great powers. Pakistan, for many in this town, has already made a decision, a choice, which is to be in the Chinese camp. There's the China-Pakistan economic corridor, there's billions of dollars flowing from that, and many would argue that quoting Pakistan at this point for Washington makes no sense, because ultimately it's the US and India strategic partnership that's much more important. How would you respond to that?
You know, I think when you say this, you are perhaps looking at the world in terms of the classic hard alliances that the world had during the Cold War, where, you know, you existed in silos and where you were either with one bloc or against that bloc. I think the world has changed tremendously, and today, China is United States' largest trading partner. Today, China is a major trading partner with India also. Despite there being a strategic competition, these relationships are not seen or perceived as either or relationships. And for Pakistan, I think it is wrong to see our relationship, and that's the point that I made in my presentation also, that we don't want to be, you know, we are a very important and significant country in our own right. And our friendship with China is not something that started yesterday. It's been a relationship that has always been there, even when, you know, China and United States were in completely opposing camps, and they did not have the kind of trade and investment linkages and connections that they have today. And in fact, Pakistan played a role in a way, you know, in bringing China and United States. So and then in the context of CPEC also, I think that does not mean that the Chinese investments are to the exclusion of everyone else. I think if you look at our investment regime, and that's the point that I'll be making extensively here in Washington, D.C., that those investment packages are available on a most favored nation status basis. And that China came to Pakistan, frankly, when no one was ready to come to Pakistan. Today, the situation has changed fundamentally and remarkably in terms of the security turnaround that we have achieved in Pakistan, in terms of what we have done in overcoming the energy crisis, in terms of CPEC, creating that basic infrastructure that should allow us and enable us to move to the next level, where the process of industrialization kickstarts, where, you know, we have a 210 million population with 45% middle class, with 40% increase in their consumption power, So all this opens up avenues for manufacturing and using Pakistan as a connectivity hub in the wider region. So I really don't think that the resurrecting the ghosts of Cold War is the right thing to do, and to conceive the relationships and realignment strictly in the manner in which they were seen or perceived 40 years or 30 years ago. I think this is a new world. This is where countries are basically looking for opportunities with friends and with their strategic competitors alike, and Pakistan doesn't want to be any different.
Fair enough. One more on this, and then we'll switch to a harder topic.
Oops. I thought this was the harder one.
You make the point about the sort of economic space, the market, the size. That's taken. The problem for Pakistan, of course, there is that you sit next to two giants, two of the largest economies in the world. And that fact is also not going to change. Apart from economics, isn't part of the problem in this relationship that all the issues that the two sides have discussed for the past 3 or 4 years at least have not been positive? There's Afghanistan, where there was tension. There's nuclear, where there's been an issue. There is terrorism, which I will come to. Where is the positive convergence that should create champions of the Pakistan relationship in this town? Because quite frankly, you are still going to do calls, but I'll be honest with you, one of the big changes from when you were here previously, I think those champions are gone, because there's a lot of frustration with the relationship.
I think you are not following Senator Lindsey Graham and what he has said about the relationship. Again, obviously, and I think you are right, the challenge in this relationship, I would say for the past whole decade, has been the centrality of the Afghan issue as a part of the conversation, and that has in a way influenced everyone here in DC, and therefore I think the convergence, and I think I would like to say that President Trump has shown a lot of courage and vision in seeking peace or trying to achieve peace in Afghanistan. Our bilateral conversations for as long as this issue has been in the relationship.
No, I mean, I think that's a fair point. And one of the critiques I have in the conversations here is that, yes, it is not as broad as it should be, because there are other things that are happening in Pakistan. But since Afghanistan, you mentioned Afghanistan as sort of the issue that's holding things back, there seems to be positive news out of Afghanistan. And for the past 2 months, 3 months, it's, some of the narratives have changed on US-Pakistan in terms of what's happening in Afghanistan. What is Pakistan's vision for Afghanistan beyond saying that it should be peaceful and independent and everything else? does Pakistan, if somebody were to come to you today, or the Pakistani state, and say, what is your ideal scenario out of this entire peace process, what would that be?
I think, I mean, the facts speak for themselves. There is no country